Now the next part of the assembly process is to get the main piece of vinyl up and over top of your steel enclosure. And we recommend that you have at least 4 people to help you out with this stage of the process.
Once the fabric has been rolled out along the side, you will now unfold the fabric as you're moving it over top the booth. Utilizing ladders and a push broom will assist in aiding to get it over top the 4 sidewall supports.
So as you can see, we're using 4 people in order to get the material up on top of the steel enclosure. Now we had 2 people on the ground feeding the vinyl to the 2 people that were on the ladders. As we moved across, the 2 people on the ground started using a push broom in order to help move the vinyl to the far side of the enclosure. In terms of lining up, you want to make sure that you have the white pieces lined up with your sidewall and roof supports. And you want to make sure that you have the blue vinyl at the bottom lined up with that bottom rail.
We now mark the center line by measuring across the width of your enclosure, back wall, making a mark at center point. This is what you will line up with the already existing center line mark on the fabric. We start by putting a fastener polylock into the polylock channel at the center point, leaving about 1.5 to 2 inches of white fabric. We just temporarily tack this in place to ensure it is properly lined up. Okay, we temporarily tack this corner, then we'll go over and tack the far corner. So we are now lined up basically with the middle of this rail on both sides. It's equal, so we can now attach it in place. Your polylock channel and polylock attachment strips are only located on your exterior far end wall, front and back. There is no strips on any of your 4 side supports. Now we're going to temporarily tack the bottom corners, then go to the front wall and pull it taut. To find the center line of our structure, we're measuring from interior to interior of the edge post, which brings us to 169.5 inches. That divided in half brings us to our center point, which is 84.75 inches. We will now mark that on the metal. The measurement we just took in on the front wall is the same as we've done on the back wall. It is 84.75 to center. We're going to repeat tacking the polylock in place on the front to ensure it lines up with our center support rails and gives us our line up on each bottom corner. What we're trying to accomplish here is to line up our fabric, our white fabric lines with our 4 center support walls. This can be adjusted by tensioning either the front or back wall. The rest of the vinyl material you will find packaged in one bag. It includes 7 pieces. The filter section, which is easily distinguished with the Velcro that's attached. The 2 door sweeps, which are smaller pieces and have a grommet holes in them. The 3 door pieces, which one piece goes on the back wall covering the door, and the other 2 pieces go on the front wall, 2 corners. You also have one that's called a keeper sweep. What it is a piece with a rope channel through. This goes along the very bottom of the back wall. To put your keeper sweep in, you start underneath your rear door on your back wall. At the very bottom, underneath the 2-inch channel, there is a rope guide. You place your rope up in it and work its way through. We will now trim the rope from this corner so it lines up into the corner next to the wheel. Then remove the rope from that channel. We're removing the rope to allow this fabric to lay flat on the ground without keeping it up in the air. If you require a smaller piece of polylock, they can be overweaving on top of each other within the channel. We started at the bottom, brought a piece up. Now this is extra, so we will take it and cut the polylock, then fasten it in.
Now while Kelly's finishing up installing the main piece of vinyl, I'm going to work on the door sweeps on your front filter doors. Now when we're looking at the enclosure, the door on the right hand side, we're going to install the door sweep so that it lines up perfectly with the edge of the door, which will give it about a 4 or 5 inch overlap on the right hand side. Now when we're looking at the left hand door, we're going to leave that 4 or 5 inch overlap over center to be able to give that better seal. Now the next piece to install is going to be the front wall section. Now as Kelly said, there's 3 pieces that are all the same shape and size. These are going to be used for the 2 front walls and for the rear man door. This is installed again using the polylock and the polylock channel. Now when installing this piece of fabric, you want to make sure that it is centered in this section of the door. Now as a quick tip and trick, what you're going to want to do is use your polylock channel to go across the top and then bend it down along the sides. This is going to ensure a nice tight seal right along this corner.
We're going to now trim the side wall fabric. This is done on the front corners by lining it up with the polylock, the bottom polylock strip on each corner and cutting about a 1/2 inch out in a straight line across. This will give us the seal on the front wall by overlapping the fabrics. We then take another 1/2 inch, leaving a 1/2 inch material, trim up and around the whole front wall enclosure. This is repeated all the way around the enclosure. Eight intake filters are supplied with the enclosure. Upon delivery, you will find them attached to the exhaust unit. There's 2 sides to this intake filter. The side which says downstream goes to the interior of the booth. It is a 3-ply filter with different capture rates. The finer to denser capture on the inside. This provides clean air into your exhaust, into your spray booth. Simple installation. You slide up into the channel, push down into the channel, and push the wire frame in tight. Repeat for all 8 sections.
Now that we have our main piece of vinyl, our 2 front wall vinyls, and our rear man door vinyl installed using the polylock, the next step in the process is to line up your filter unit with the back wall. Now we do this before installing the back wall vinyl. The first step in this process is to install your ratchet straps. Once those are installed, you'll ratchet the exhaust system and the enclosure together, which will give you the perfect alignment when installing your back wall. So the next step in the process is to get your Velcro lined up with the Velcro on the exhaust system. We'll do that by having someone on the outside hold the Velcro up, and us on the inside will install the Velcro. Now that we have the Velcro installed, the last step in the process is to polylock the exterior. Now that the back wall is installed, our assembly is complete. To recap our assembly, We started off by laying out the metal pieces on the ground, identifying the differences between the back wall and the front wall. We then assembled the steel enclosure. The next step was to pull the large piece of vinyl over top of the steel enclosure, sealing it with the polylock strips. We then installed the two front wall pieces and the rear man door piece. The last step was we used the filter unit to line up our back wall of vinyl, and the installation was complete. That concludes our assembly instructions. Thank you very much for purchasing a Duroair system. And if you have any other questions, please consult your instruction manual, or you can always give us a call.